I think this song is appropriate, being that it's like a sauna in here right now. Y'all niggas got me hot. If you know this shit, sing along. Niggas got me hot. Hey, well that's exactly what the nigga came for.
EMDR, yes? So, 1987, late Cold War era, Francine Shapiro, psychologist, researcher in her 30s, is dealing with a kind of free-floating, unspecified anxiety, a malaise familiar to anyone carrying modern angst, as well as a nuanced knowledge of the human psyche. Shapiro decides to take a walk in a quiet park near her home in Los Gatos, I don't know, is that how you say it? Los Gatos, California. Outside, surrounded by trees, moving through that solid, silent presence of green, a space we might all agree is often a place of healing. So she's walking, presumably with her head full of the day's cares, her eyes skimming left to right, and then something strange happens. She feels a kind of shift. Her mind seems to clear, her anxieties dissipate. The movement of her eyes, this rhythmic back and forth gaze, seems as if it might be the unassuming key to a peculiar mental clarity, an accidental tranquilizer delivered by the trees, the shadows, and the street lamps. Does Francine become a ecotherapist following on from this road to Damascus moment, you might ask? Well, no. Not much money in ecotherapy, and also notoriously hard to fit nature walks into the typical 50-minute session format. So, for practical, financial, maybe even cultural reasons, Shapiro's therapy stays indoors. There she begins experimenting, testing the effect of these eye movements on herself and eventually on others. Before long, a simple walk in nature snowballs into a kind of therapeutic approach with its own mesmeric, look into my eyes, almost theatrical flair, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which now, 35 years later, has transformed itself into this very significant component of the mental health field. Accredited training programs in the UK, which I've participated in, teach you how to perform this technique in front of someone's face for a minute or two, alongside a potted history of trauma theory, all for a few £1,000s in tuition fees, plus the privilege of giving up 5 or 6 weekends to sit in a air-conditioned conference room being lulled to sleep by PowerPoint slides. Trauma is now the word that we moderns use to say something shitty happened to me today, yesterday, last week, during my childhood, or, even in our generational, familiar, collective evolutionary history. For example, a client doesn't tell me that he's using his American SIM card in a phone that he wants me to call him on in London, and I get charged £320 this month for one 60-minute phone call. Actually, it was 70 minutes because I, overextended, which he won't pay for because, well, he's a shitty, flaky, and entitled Enneagram 4, arguably the worst personality type you can have, right? Also a Gen Z brat, so, kind of double brat squared. Insufferable. It goes without saying.
Hey, you drink up all my liquor, come on, what I'm supposed to do now? And you talking all that shit, now come on, you gon' have to back it up. If I get too high now, sugar, come on, I might never come down, you might not ever come down, nah, I wanna get down, help me out now.
And I don't feel especially good about this dude's behavior. In fact, I feel pretty bad, like I've been kind of mugged by EE and Julian. Would this count as a single traumatic event in the EMDR Bible? You betcha. It has all the hallmarks of trauma. I can't let it go, thinking about it all the time, replaying the incident in my mind, wondering how I could have been so blindsided, unable to stop my brain, calculating just how many hours of work it's going to take me to recoup that fee, right? About 8, I would say, after taxes, and seeing I only had 3 sessions in total with my now least favorite Enneagram 4, sessions he got at a reduced rate because, well, brat squared. I'm feeling small t traumatized. So bring on the EMDR is what I say. And indeed, if I had another £320 in my pocket to offer up to an EMDR therapist like myself, although I'm not charging that, we would most likely guide me to focus on the memory of the incident, the physical sensations that come up when I recall the bill, Julian ignoring all my requests on WhatsApp, email, voice messages, asking him in the nicest possible way if he might be able to stump up for at least half of that payment, 150. Come on, Julian. Try to be a vaguely decent, honest Enneagram 4, not a shitty 4. Come on, Julian, come on.
You drink up all my liquor, come on, what I'm supposed to do now? And you talking all that shit, now come on, you gon' have to back it up. I get too high now, sugar, come on, I might never come down, You might not ever come down, nah, let me get down. Let me out now, you might not ever come down, I wanna get down.
And then the classic eye movement process, right, would begin with me tracking the therapist's finger or whatever back and forth while I hold this irritating memory in mind, maybe with some soft music playing in the background. And over a few rounds, the charge of my resentment might start to ease. My mind may be softening towards the uber brat Julian, perhaps even reframing, what happened in some way. And these are, of course, outcomes that also happen in regular talk therapy, but as we know, in our long history of idiot humans trying to heal other human idiots, when the healer idiot is doing a little jig, or maybe intoning a ritual phrase, or applying ointments, or waving feathers, or burning herbs, chanting over water, tapping, dancing in circles, or even going the whole Megillah with, bells and drums, we, other idiots, seem by and large to prefer that method, the one that's got a bit of oomph thrown into it, just like, we vote for political leaders that have that demagogue style to them, right? Because, well, we prefer real buttons and dials still to this day over haptic screens. It's a human thing, it's a branding thing, what can I say? The commercialization of EMDR reflects not just its popularity, but also the weighty claims behind it. Francine Shapiro's simple insight that, looking around you while walking outside can ease distress, has now evolved into a somewhat structured therapeutic approach, promising rapid relief from trauma and PTSD. Supporters hail EMDR for its unique depth in reaching stuck memories in the nervous system and offering emotional resets in a few sessions. Critics, however, and I would be one of these critics, even though I do also use it at times, argue that its success may lie more in novelty than efficacy. By shifting the focus from language to bodily sensations, the eye movements, etc., which is hard to impose on a session that begins in the realm of language, EMDR, I think, offers a way to bypass these stupid words and concepts that clutter up our minds and congregate around our hurt hearts, perhaps allowing the unresolved memories in that very Freudian psychoanalytical way some space to emerge and find, like wayward phantoms, some rest. As with all therapy, though, the key word is in the perhaps. I mean, we're in the realm of trigram heaven again, aren't we? All the potential, all the hope we project onto this method, which appears, for some, to be a very beautiful heavenly concept, rich in promise and possibility. Yet, as heaven suggests in its boundlessness, there's really no certainty here, only that vast openness of what might, could, perhaps, potentially be. Heaven, then, is no surprise one of the trigrams that comes up for me when I ask the Yijing, what is EMDR, and receive Hexagram 34 for my 6 coin throws, the power of the great. This hexagram, with its thunderous energy rumbling atop the vast potential of heaven, speaks to the forcefulness and the occasional raw impact of EMDR as a modality. The judgment, the power of the great, perseverance furthers, reflects, I think, EMDR's driving promise to push through stagnant blocks of trauma and release the intensity of suppressed memory. Looking at the trigrams, the image thunder over heaven suggests a method that generates powerful movement on the surface while drawing from a deep, unseen well of potential. Thunder represents this dynamism of perspectives, the eye tracking, the technique itself. Heaven beneath representing this vast, often untapped depth of the patient's psyche. But thunder can only stir what lies on the surface of heaven's deep expanse, hinting, I would say, at EMDR's possible limitations in addressing more complex layered issues, or those that are knit up quite often with personality structures and other enduring patterns. In any performative stance, and there is something I would say quite performative about EMDR, we might still be able to capture something that feels organically, even magically true. Perhaps this is also the case for the I Ching. It's hard to put into words this thing because it's ineffable, more of a sensation than a concept, something felt rather than thought. It's like perhaps watching a few bars of Anderson .Paak's mythical Tiny Desk concert, 110 million views on YouTube, a performance where he embodies, I would say, this thunder and heaven hybrid energy. Heaven in the swing, the control of his playing, the disciplined artistry, and then thunder in the groove, the raw funk of his lyrics and vocals. Together, we might say that they create a kind of holding presence, a container of rhythm and joyful grace, a sense that you're in safe hands. And perhaps it's this quality, as much as anything, a sort of placebo effect that heals, this metaphysical container, this rhythm offering itself up to hold pain somewhat differently, like the rhythm of the blues, where suffering is held often in the touch of this exquisite aching joy, rhythmically lifting up our weight without denying its presence.
Now who the call me a player? I ain't one of these young niggas out here sweating for a pay stub. I'm a coach. I'ma teach these bitches how to lay up. Now most of y'all can't do shit, but all my chicks cook grits and roll a spliff at the same damn time. You ain't lived long enough to have a bitch this fine. Now hold up, if you don't mind.
Thunder over heaven, I think, implies here an impactful but perhaps momentary functional technique, one that creates the space to experience trauma anew with a burst of energy, thunder, that may, but also may not, always reach the roots of that trauma tree, but still perhaps manages to shake loose enough bad feeling to allow a moment of release and thus reprieve, or at least enough to warrant spending the money on, a couple of EMDR therapy sessions rather than Botox or a mindfulness app subscription or a new pair of shoes or ad-free YouTube for a year, or in my case, an unfortunately hefty phone bill.